We have a lovely evening. The sun will set in about 35 minutes or so. So this is kind of hopefully a perfect occasion. So as you graduate, the sun will set. The beginning of a new day will start. We do 5 things at IHS. We teach, or we enable people to learn more than teaching. We train. We're one of the largest institutions that work with working professionals. And as our alumni come through, they'll be able to understand and appreciate more the importance of working with people who are actually in the process of bringing policy and practice. We do research. And in fact, I think the wonderful thing over the last many years that we've been here is much of what we share with you comes from our research and our practice. We've become a fairly unique institution in which much of what you're engaged with, the questions that you come to us with, are engaged through questions of that we've engaged to as practitioners and researchers. So we teach, we train, we do research. We also do remarkable work on practice, which is quite important to us because it is from practice that we're able to try and change the world and change ourselves. And that's what distinguishes this institution from many other institutions in this country. And finally, we bring some of this together in digital learning products, which many of you who are not able to be here, some people who are online and otherwise, are able to access the work that we're doing. So like I said, we teach, we train, we do research, we are centrally about practice, and we also work on digital learning. Those are the 5 things that we do. Over the last year, some of you have seen the emergence of our schools. We have 5 schools, and the last many batches, 7 batches of you have not necessarily come through that, but we're hoping from next year onwards, people will experience the power of integrated knowledge in the 5 areas that we work in governance, in economic development, in human development, in urban systems and infrastructure, which you spent a fair amount of time in, and on environment and sustainability. So these are the 5 schools which are very unlike many other institutions in this country, which are organized by departments, by other ways of doing things. And the reason we've done that over the last many years is because that seems to be a very good way of trying to address the core challenges that you'll face when you go into practice or research or policy, or in some cases, as we found some fellows going actually into politics, because the world is not organized, at least much of this world is not organized according to discipline. It's organized into the way that people live and the way that they address particular challenges. So this is the new thing that we've seen over the last year. And I'd like to sort of thank all my colleagues, especially the people who are trying to build out the new schools, because that's a great new adventure for us just now. Because as you've heard, in the next year, we're going to try a very interesting experiment. We're going to try and almost, or actually, double the size of the intake of the UFP. And people will come in and they will be more engaged with the sort of school framework. So first thing, wonderful to have you here. And many thanks to the people who got us here through a long period of time. Some of our colleagues who've been with us in the past are here again, and I think it's a wonderful thing to welcome you back as far as that's concerned. But having said that, I think this is a special year for us for a very simple reason. And especially because the alumni are here, we just had a conversation. This is the first time in IHS history, we've been around for almost 15 years. This is the first time that the alumni actually have larger numbers than the staff and faculty in IHS. Okay? So for us, that's a critical turning point because the reason that we established this institution was to enable people to go out, especially younger people, and actually do dramatically different things. Yeah? And in some senses, like we said, some of you remember last year, the question is, who are we? We are IHS. We're here to transform India. And by transforming India, hopefully, when you become 10 times the number of people who are hiding on that side of the amphitheater, away from the sun and in the shade, then this country will change, and because this country will change, basically the world will change. It's a very simple idea, right? We're here to be able to transform this country and the people who live in it and the environments that we live in. And by doing that, we sort of basically, hopefully, and quickly in some senses change the world. If you look at what we've done in the last 15 years or so, and I'll quickly lay it out for you. We're about 15 years old. Technically, at the end of the year, we'll be 15 years old. And we've done a few things. I think the thing that we're most proud of now is that we have a number of you, more of you than us, who've been in part of the process. But we've actually been able to do some very simple and significant things over time. So just to speak to the question that Gautam started with, the question of the impact on people, on place and institutions. At the current point of time, there are very few institutions who, because of the people inside it, are actually reaching out. At the moment, we reach out to about 15 million people. Fine. If you add the work that we're doing in Northern India, you add the work we're doing in Tamil Nadu, we're actually directly on a daily basis influencing the life of 15 million people, which basically means something of the order of about 3% of the urban population in this country. In about 2 years' time, we hope that number will touch 25 million. That, I think, is a very significant achievement for such a small number of people. There are only a few hundred of us. But because we've been able to work together, because we've adopted a particular way of doing things, and because we work really, really hard at this, in some senses, we've been able to achieve something which most academic institutions don't do. The second thing is, we work across every state in this country. Not all the union territories, I'm being careful here, but we work across every state in this country. And in effect, in the last many years, we touch now almost 1,000 urban local bodies across the country. There are about 8,000 of them, so there's still a way to go, fine? So the large numbers of people, our engagement with various places that are there, it's not as deep and rich as we should be, and that is primarily constrained by the fact that there's so few of us. If there were 10 times we had imagined many years ago as the university would be established, we would have that. Apart from that, our urban practitioners program has, over the last 10 years or more, trained almost 17,000 people. The largest part of our bubble is the digital blended learning program. We have, in the last many years, we're touching almost 50,000 people who we touch that program. But in this case, not only in this country, about a third of them come from the country, a little bit more. We're touching people from across the world. So we've touched about 55,000 people through our digital products, and they're going to expand very, very quickly over time. So it's an organized and sort of somewhat orchestrated process. The largest bubble is our digital blended learning program, then the urban practitioners program that works within that, and further within that, our practice and active program, and finally, our face-to-face contact, the real ability for us to spend time with you so you can question and work with us and actually sort of transform and change the direction in which your own professional and personal lives would actually work in some sense. Apart from that, of course, we do a tremendous amount of research. We're one of the most significant research organizations that have been built in this country over the last decade or so. So you can see all of that in various places. It's important not because research is important. It is because knowledge that is relevant to this country, fine, and the problems that it's dealing with is important. And when we started, we actually did not have control over that knowledge. When we started 10, 12 years ago, one of the core questions is, or was, what can we teach that's relevant to now that does not belong to another country or another era? Because most academic institutions in this country work with knowledge that is 5, 10 years old. We have the advantage here literally of things actually happening on the ground in the last week, actually coming into our engagement, into our curriculum, into our process. You've had the wonderful experience, I would say, and I wish you would been able to have used it even more, but I hope in the next journey you can do that, of connecting with some of the most significant practitioners and researchers in this country. I mean, you can knock on the door, talk to them. You've always done that in office hours. You can do that even later. They're the people who are actually making the difference on the ground. And as you work with them, as you move from being fellows to becoming part of our entire journey as colleagues, that's a big thing that I think you're going to be, seeing as far as it's concerned. So, I hope at the end of this, there would be some really useful things that you will remember and cherish, not only the stuff that happens in the classrooms and the immersion visits and stuff like that. But having said that, this is about, one of the other things that I'd like to share with you is, there are some things that you can do for us in return, fine? And this is going to be a little bit tough, but it's going to be quite interesting in some senses. So in some ways, the faculty and the entire team here, we work pretty hard. That's one thing that we do quite well. Are we different? Yes? No? Yeah, we're a little bit different, yeah? Or sometimes we're really weirdly different. So we work quite hard, and we are quite different. That's one thing that's very, very clear, I think, about this team, and I think your colleagues who've come before you will actually sort of deal with that as far as they're concerned. This is where it gets a little tricky, and this is my discussion with my colleagues here, and that is, are we as good, or will we be, or will you be as good as we are where we are just now? The other way of asking that question is, are we as good as you are now? Where will you be 15 or 20 years from now? And I think this is an honest challenge for us, because we talk about this question of interdisciplinarity, bringing people together from different backgrounds that are there. And you people are actually remarkable people. We have few hundred, 500, 600, 700 people who apply for this program, 20 or 30 or 60 or 70 come through, which actually means that you are remarkable. You have a commitment towards doing something, otherwise we wouldn't let you through the door. Are we really good enough as a faculty to be able to hold you and enable you to become much better than we are when you reach where we are just now? That's, in a sense, the great test for us, fine? Yeah? To find people who are remarkable and give them the opportunity, the strength, the courage, the self-confidence to actually not only change themselves, but to become much better than the people who help them become what they are just now. Fine? That's the next thing I think we have to think about it, and this is a very important part of our relationship with the alumni as we build themselves out, as we become larger than us in terms of number. And I guess the other question is, are we perfect? Are we not even good in some senses? And I would say we're not. Fine? And that's where I think all of you are be very critical to us. And that is, it is really important to us as an institution, to the mission that this institution is set out to do, is that you hold us, you hold the institution, you hold us to account in terms of where you think we should be going and what we should be going, and maintain the standards that we think we have set for you. Fine? And you can do that because you're going to go out into the world, you're going to do out really interesting things. Fine? Some of them are going to be difficult, some of them are going to be complex, etc. But we would like you to always look back at us and hold us to account to doing the right things, doing it the best that we can, so that other people can become and have experiences which are even better and more fulfilling than we have. And then in time, the rule here, you can't come back for 3 years. Fine? We have a very simple rule here. You can come back and spend time with us, but you can't come onto that side of the room for 3 years. Basically, for a very simple reason. We want you to find your own voice, your own agency as far as that's concerned. So we would really, look forward for you to come back at some point of time to work with us, to teach with us, to train with us, to actually work with us to take this mission into a much, much more significant space than it is. But having said that, we are in a very difficult time, not only in this country, but in the world. Right? We're in the middle of a set of tremendous crises. Basically, our development system is not working. Our governance system, in some cases, is deeply fractured. The second thing is, we're in the middle of a very deep environmental crisis. This campus is the inverse of that process. This campus is about trying to bring all of those things together. And then on top of that, we have the AI revolution that's happening at the current point of time. At some senses, you can look at the world and say, everything is falling apart, fine? But when some of us look at it, we say, look, this is a time of great disruption. What better time to bring in people who understand what systems are, who understand how to work together, who understand how to work from multiple different perspectives to actually look at the system and make it change. It would be wonderful if instead of just choosing yourself and your profession and your discipline and the money that you might get and the jobs you might get, is first to choose planet. Fine. The second thing is to choose life. And in able to make that happen, you have to choose both people and community. These are choices that we make. These are values that we hold together as far as that's concerned. And when you choose people and community, for all of us, we have to choose both prosperity and peace. In order to make that happen, we have to choose justice and equality. For many of us, we have chosen solidarity and service. Criticality is what most educational institutions give you, but we hope we've given you a little bit of spark in the space of proposition. But with that, you will find in the world, proposition does not work without struggle. And struggle does not work without actually having a hope that the world can become a different place. And you will find your place in that world, which is difficult, full of strife and conflict and opportunity to actually make a difference. So having said that, I would say, go well, change the world, and come back to us, changed every little thing on a daily basis. Every little thing that changes every day is actually going to make the big difference that in time, like we said, which will help transform yourselves, your community, your family, your extended family, your partner, your friends, and eventually the society and the culture that you live in.